Welcome back. Today, I've been meaning to do this for a long time. I was searching for a way to tie how to do trim, how Jim does trim, because Jim isn't a craftsman trim carpenter. I just have refined my hack trim carpentry over the years in many houses. And this video will show some of those houses and how that progressed. And some of the things I learned is trim can be very simple and elegant, just like this prairie trim in the house that I'm currently in. And trim can be incredibly beautiful and ornate. And I showed a close-up of this. But this is the trim from Hawaii. I got a little carried away. This is just one piece of the trim, of the multi-level trim of Hawaii. And this video will show a lot of that, how it was installed. It's just beautiful. I mean, I even like touching stuff like this. I know it's a little odd or a little weird. It's like, there's something about wood that does feel nice. Fine finished wood. Even the big piece and even small pieces. If you can see this, we'll see. And I'm going to be using these when I do some built-ins later here at our final forever home. And early on, it was a mess, but I realized the value of details. And I don't know where that came from, other than God and God's example. He's a God of detail. And He's a God of detail in architecture and building. In Genesis, God had specific plans, the type of wood and the dimensions and the animals and everything for the ark. And then when you read also in Exodus about His design for the tabernacle, very detailed. Types of materials, the contrast, the textures, the colors, all of it. And for the temple, how that was to be built. And even just looking into the universe, you can see God is a God of detail. And exceptional, exquisite detail. So, why take the time to trim a house? I mean, it's just extra cost. And believe me, typically only rich people, the Donald Trumps at Mar-a-Lago, for example, or the Palace of Versailles, have such trim, because they just hire somebody and say, make it beautiful, and use your skills and make it beautiful. I don't have that kind of money. But I wanted all of our houses to be uniquely beautiful and reflect us and the things that we think should be valuable or provide a sense of accomplishment, and that you can look at and say, man, that looks nice. I like that. That was a lot of work, and some frustration went with it, but trim is very important. When you take a look at most houses built now, it's just drywall corners, not much crown molding or trim. And I get it, most people just don't have the time or the desire to do the trim. But the best thing you can do if you're going to invest in a house and you want it, and it's for the purposes of, even if you're going to resell it, the thing that'll set it apart more than anything else is trim. And while you are there, you get to enjoy all those fine details. I also want to point out, and it'll be in another video, I consider landscaping trim, trimming the landscape of a property, the types of plants, the height, the colors, all of it is trim. And between the landscape and the interior finishing trim, a house can be stand out, and people are willing to pay twice the price for the same size house. So if you want to take the time, I'm not the trim expert, and if there's trim carpenters out there, you're probably going to cringe. But some things I learned about trim is layering, shadow lines, different material, different color material to add contrast. So when you see the trim I'm about to show you, that's what I tried to accomplish, was doing things that are kind of out of the ordinary. Like in Hawaii, I didn't want to match the crown molding and the trim I had to the headrail of the windows. So I just stopped them, capped them off, and I thought they looked beautiful. In some cases in the trim I don't like miter corners. I don't know what it is. It just seems like every ordinary house. You look at them, they have a mitered corner. So I looked at different ways to do corners. I did miter corners and crown molding, but I've also did some unique block work and rosette work. So I mean this as an encouragement. If you want to change a room, you can paint it, you can fix up all the nicks and scratches. But if you simply take a look at the trim, big base molding with layers and crown molding, window trim. And granted, the trim, if you just go buy a pre-made trim, it's like crazy expensive, stupid expensive. But we made most of ours and cut it and designed it and made it. We used some examples when we were in Hawaii. Was the Walt Disney Aulani Hotel. I looked at that and then made some decisions. But here, our first house was a prairie house, and I had videos on that. And this place I consider prairie style, just block, no miter corners, straight pieces, straight top, that's it. Some overhang. Sometimes
trim can be simple. Yep. Like a simple prairie style trim. And I like simple prairie style farmer's trim with wood especially. It's something nice about the simplicity of it. You can add to prairie style by adding some depth and dimensions in a piece of it, like this on the door. I still have to put one on the top, by the way. That sticks out a little bit or is recessed in. That's what I talk about layering. It works very well in trim. Just add some dimensions.
Sometimes some depth pieces to add depth, sometimes not. So I hope you enjoy this video. I'll talk through some of it, just with the rest of it with some monologue, and we had some video as we were cutting and doing some of the work in Hawaii. The earlier ones, just still photos. So, the main message here is God is a God of detail. So we should try our best to add detail to the things we do, all things we do. Whether it's landscaping, the trim in our house, our cars, or just, do it all and do it right, as if we were to do it unto the Lord. So enjoy, and someday I'll show you where I've put this on these pieces, these Hawaiian pieces, on some built-ins that I hope to make someday in a woodworking shop that doesn't exist right now, but the space does. and that might be a winter project. So I hope you get some ideas from what I'm about to present today. And thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Putting up a 3/4 inch by 8 inch band molding at the top of the ceilings, these 10-foot ceilings. And on the bottom edge of that molding, we're going to have a piece of mahogany stained in that cherry mode, and then of course the crown molding will go up above it. We're finding that all of these walls are rolled out from the top quite a bit because of it. But installing trim with self-tapping trim screws into steel studs. And sometimes the self-drilling is a little hard. There we go. Nice tight screw on the trim. Now that we've been working on the walls to square them away, we have to take off these old stools off from all the windows, and they're put on with 1, 2 finish screws that are sunk down quite a ways. It's hard to find them at times. And then cut all along the edges that are caulked. On this particular window we had, quite an array. 3 in the middle and 2 more. And we've got to cut along the edge of that, along the bottom, and take off that old stool until we get to this where we can trim it out the way we need to. Because the horns here on the side are too short to do anything with. Right here, these are too short. They need to be quite wide in order to put our 4-inch trim along the window. Now, you can see Dave's pre-cutting the edges to take off the molding on the bottom, and we'll use these stools and trim for templates when we go to make the new stools. After we cut them, we got to prime them. It's a lot of painting. We have like over 1,500 feet of trim total. All this baseboard, crown for the top of the windows, stools for the windows, cabinet headers for the top of the windows. They're 8 inches. The vertical, or the standoffs for the side of the windows, are 5 1/4 inches. So we're trying to figure out how to get all this painted. So we're going to do sides first, let it dry, have a break, and then continue. What you doing, Dave?
Wiping the salt out of my eyes.
Oh, what you doing to the board, Dave?
Scraping it down.
Scraping it down.
All of the overflow.
All the over stuff. That's a lot of boards today.
Yeah, cut them today.
Painted, primed, cut, primed. It's crazy. Amount of boards today, Dave. Turning the garage into a mill workshop.